The Employment Non-Discrimination Act, not the legalization of same-sex marriage, should be the top priority of the LGBT civil rights movement. The ENDA offers Congress the opportunity to ensure workplace equality by protecting LGBT workers from employment discrimination, according to the American Civil Liberties Union website. This legislation should be at the forefront of the LGBT civil rights movement for various reasons. First, marriage is merely a symbolic commitment between two people. It has little tangible benefits for the people involved, and even less for the society in which it exists. The few tangible benefits marriage does offer can be accomplished through the ENDA. Second, Congress has passed legislation regarding employment in the past, making the ENDA more likely to encounter success than the legalization of same-sex marriage. This will give the LGBT civil rights movement the necessary momentum it needs to pave the way for more legislation. Third, employment is an issue that affects far more people in the LGBT community than same-sex marriage. Everyone must be employed in order to ensure basic necessities, such as housing and food. However, not everyone chooses to get married. The act of marriage in and of itself has very little effect on the people outside of the marriage. Marriage is merely a symbol, but denying someone the right to employment has negative material consequences. While it's true that married couples gain certain tangible benefits, society as a whole doesn't undergo significant transformation as a result. If passed, the ENDA is capable of achieving these benefits since many of them are work-related, such as insurance benefits. The passing of the ENDA can grant the LGBT community with many of the rights associated with the legalization of same-sex marriage while positively affecting more people in the LGBT community. This makes it a more reasonable and effective goal for the LGBT civil rights movement. Congress has already passed legislation that grants rights to workers and eliminates discrimination in the workplace, such as the Fair Labor Standards Act in 1938 and affirmative action in 1965. This makes it more probable that the ENDA will encounter success in the future, since Congress has approved of similar laws in the past. The institution of marriage, however, has undergone very little change over the years. While it's true that same-sex marriage is legal in some states, such as Massachusetts and Connecticut, most states have not approved of it. My opponent claims that the issue of same-sex marriage is the most visible and frequently discussed issue in the LGBT community and the public arena. However, she fails to provide any facts that support this claim. I have provided concrete examples of how employment has undergone numerous transformations in the past, unlike the institution of marriage, ensuring that the ENDA will encounter more success in a shorter amount of time, supplying the LGBT civil rights movement with the momentum it needs. The passage of the ENDA will give rights to more members in the LGBT community since there are more people employed than there are people interested in marriage. According to the Human Rights Campaign website, in 29 states, it's still legal to fire someone solely because they're lesbian, gay, or bisexual, and in 35 states, it is legal to fire someone solely for being transgender. These injustices negatively affect far more members of the LGBT community than the prohibition of same-sex marriage. One example is Diane Schroer, who began taking steps to transition from male to female. Upon hearing this, she was declined an offer as terrorism research analyst at the Library of Congress. Denying citizens the right to work based solely on their sexual orientation has damaging effects on society as a whole. It creates a notion that only heterosexual citizens are deserving of the benefits associated with employment. Passage of the ENDA will greatly minimize discrimination in the workplace and ensure that members of the LGBT community are granted equal employment rights. My opponent also claims that legalizing same-sex marriage will have a large spillover effect by eliminating government-based inequalities and encouraging human interaction. However, I have already proven that employment is an issue that affects far more members of the LGBT community. The workplace is one of the biggest arenas of human interaction, unlike marriage, which is typically celebrated with others on only one occasion. And since the ENDA would affect far more members of the public, it would be more successful in setting precedents for societal norms, which my opponent also mentions. My opponent also argues that marriage is one of the most sacred institutions because it represents secular values of the state and individual spiritual values, but the ENDA is the best way for the state to show support for the principles of freedom and equality for all. It's far more effective for the state to pass legislation that isn't associated with religious or spiritual beliefs because it allows the state to send a clear message to the public that won't be rejected due to religious beliefs that only a portion of citizens share. This can be seen in the upcoming presidential election. The top Republican contenders are Mitt Romney, Newt Gingrich, and Michelle Bachmann, according to a Gallup poll. All of these top contenders oppose the legalization of same-sex marriage. The same Gallup poll also states that 46% of Americans would likely vote for whichever GOP candidate wins the nomination, while only 38% of Americans would vote for Obama. This proves that the legalization of same-sex marriage would not be supported by our next president, making the ENDA much more likely to pass in the near future. My opponent makes numerous claims, but offers little factual support. I have provided far more evidence proving my case. The passage of the ENDA accomplishes many of the same goals associated with the legalization of same-sex marriage while offering unique benefits, such as the security that comes with being employed. The ENDA would benefit far more members of the LGBT community, and since its passage is more likely, it would also give the LGBT civil rights movement the necessary momentum to encounter more success in the future. For those reasons, the ENDA should be the top priority of the LGBT civil rights movement.